This video is focused on the acquisition widget. This is a huge topic, and we're going to split it into about 5 or 6 videos, frankly. Maybe it'll be less than that, maybe it'll be more. But the point is, it's an expansive topic. It's almost a product in and of itself, and we're just going to be able to scratch the surface with this video. Today, what we're going to be talking about is an overview and a simple use case. And these are 4 videos I would expect to follow almost for sure. Deploying the agents, creating indexes, old versus new agent, and network shares and connectors, just to show you some of the topics we'll go into. But I would actually expect quite a few more of them over the coming months because, again, there is so much to analyze and to understand within the acquisition widget. All right, let me spend a few minutes here talking about what the difference between Quincy and the other solutions are relative to acquisition and sort of enterprise investigations. Now, before I go through this table, the table is designed to highlight, I think, fundamental differences between the products, differences that I would expect to be maintained longer term. If I wanted to put a comprehensive list of things together, that each product had, AD eDiscovery and AD Enterprise would have a huge list, whereas Quincy would have quite a small one. So my point is not to highlight that these solutions are comparable and that Quincy has things these other solutions don't. My point is simply to highlight some longer term fundamental differences so you can better understand where we're going with Quincy. The first and most important difference is the agent. Quincy supports a C# agent as its primary agent. It also supports the legacy C++ agent for those of you who are existing customers. But the older solutions do not. They are focused on the C++ agent. And frankly, if we ever incorporate the C# agent into these solutions, which is something we might seriously look to do, most of these differences would almost immediately go away. So this is sort of the root cause of the longer term differences. Index in place, which is of course enabled by the C# agent, is supported in Quincy and not eDiscovery or Enterprise. And this again is probably the key feature of the new agent that will enable us to do a lot of things in Quincy that we really can't do in the other products. But index in place carries a lot of stigma to it. A lot of people don't want indexes on their end nodes. Totally understand that. I didn't want to suggest that that's the only thing Quincy will support. As you can see right below, we also support in Quincy the crawl search, which is the type of search used by eDisco and Enterprise. So if you're really happy with the way this search works and just want to stay with it, fine. That's something we want to enable. Connectors. Across the board, I think we're going to have many in the next coming months very quickly here, but just as full disclosure, Quincy only has 3 at the moment. Exchange/Office 365, OneDrive, and Google Drive. eDiscovery has many, and I actually think Enterprise also has many, but I wasn't entirely sure, so I left a question mark here. I apologize for my ignorance there. Drive Preview. This is the kind of interactive investigations that you expect and primarily utilize Enterprise for, but that are not in eDiscovery. And this is sort of a fundamental difference again between Quincy and these other solutions. These other solutions divided how they tackle investigations. eDiscovery being the audit-based investigation and Enterprise being the more focused-based investigation, though we have done a lot to step up its audit capabilities in recent releases. The point, though, is Quincy is not making that same divide. Quincy is going to enable investigations of all type, whether you want to go really deep on a single drive or broad across a large number of drives. Volatile, I should have said soon. I'll show you today how much of it is already enabled, but it hasn't been exposed in the UI, but that will come here in the next month or 2. Whereas eDiscovery really doesn't have that, and Enterprise does, and does a really great job of it, frankly. Active agent, and again, we're talking about the C# agent here. Yes, Quincy has it, and then of course, because they don't support it, you have no here. And then finally, mature. Quincy is definitely not mature. If you're looking to utilize the Quincy agent, Quincy acquisition widget right now, it is an immature technology. It is in early phases. There are going to be some really exciting things, and I think a lot of maturity here in the very near term, but I'm not going to suggest even for a second it can hold a candle to the 10, 15 years that these other two solutions have been out on the market. I don't want to misrepresent that. And again, if I wanted to list all of eDiscovery and Enterprise's features, you'd have a ton of no's here in the left, whereas this chart was really highlight the yeses, if you will, on the Quincy column versus the other products. So anyway, that's the disclosure of what's the difference. What's the vision? For the acquisition widget, it's really corporate investigations of human-created content. That can be internet activity, it can be network activity, it can be documents on their hard drives, it can be any number of different issues, and they're broad sweeping business problems that this touches on. But I did want to differentiate that from your more malware-driven investigations that companies like Symantec and McAfee and Fortinet and whoever else the high company of today is, they do so well. That is not going to be an area we're going to spend a heck of a lot of time on because, again, those companies do it so well. But there is a void in the market for human-created content investigations and insider threat type activity. So the key issues we're going to be focused on here in the very near term, and by near term I mean Q4 and Q1, I think most of these will be tackled pretty thoroughly by then, and some of them are already tackled within the product. GDPR and California's upcoming privacy initiatives, PII, personally identifiable information, HR, compliance, and IP theft. And by client compliance, I mean human-created content / compliance, understanding the data out there, what you have, and how it fits relative to your compliance rules. Data mapping, things of this nature will be core to that solution. So that's the near-term vision. Of course, there's quite a large roadmap and stretching out several years, and I think we have a video on that, or we will shortly. So if you're curious, just go look for that. But this is the very near term, 1 to 2 quarters out. So let me hop into the solution now. Oh, excuse me. No, let me do one more. Yeah, here we got one more slide. What's the timing? Q4 has the initial release of the disk-based forensics for eDiscovery-like collections. And then we'll have a second release in Q4, again with the volatile and enterprise-like investigations. So 2 rapid releases here. Most of the technology, again, is already completed. In Q1, we're going to have a lot of workflow related to GDPR and a lot of workflow related to investigations and audit. And then from a fundamental technology perspective, we're going to do a lot to enable a much more active C# agent in terms of conducting more thorough, longer-term investigations almost autonomously in order to enable larger-scale enterprise-like audits / investigations. So anyway, yeah, so that's the timing here. That's what we're expecting, at least in the near term. So now let's go into the solution. And we're right here. Okay, I've got my Quincy set up just for acquisitions and processing, which is why we have a limited number of agents here. You can, in fact, set the acquisition agent, excuse me, you can in fact set the solution up to just have the acquisition agent. It's one of it's one of the few widgets that can support entirely autonomously. But there are other things that I'm generally doing, so I have these other agents, other widgets. Nonetheless, let's open up the product, the widget. We come into a blank screen, but of course we can cure that really quickly by clicking here on refresh, and it will go get all the jobs we've run across all our various cases. It splits them by type, by user, or by state. And I think we'll have a few more here coming near term. I think case is one where we will certainly have another graph, and honestly that will probably show up tomorrow or the next day. It's that close. But all these graphs are interactive. If you want to see the one case in progress, it's right here. If you want to see, clear that filter again, if you want to see the 50 that failed, they're right here, and you can just click onto this. So these are the completed ones. All the graphs, various graphs are like that. So you can get a good sense of what's going on in your environment, what jobs are being run, and where they are in the process. All right, the widget is powered by 3 primary tabs: creating a job, existing jobs, and configuration. Before I actually run through the process of creating a simple job, let me briefly explain each of these, just going linearly across the row here. Creating a job, as you see, or as you can imagine, is dedicated simply to the task of creating a job. We've got a wizard-driven sort of left-hand bar. Depending on what we select in these various options, more options will pop up and give us the option to the opportunity to select different capabilities. You can see right off the bat there's a question whether you want to utilize the legacy agent or the Quincy agent. And then if you have jobs saved as templates, they'll show up here, and you can load them into the solution if you want. Existing jobs, this will just show you all the jobs that are currently in a given case. Everything is driven by case in the acquisition widget except for the summaries tab. So if I were to pull up a case, I could see all the different jobs that had run and get reports on those jobs. And then finally, configuration. There are multiple places within the acquisition widget where you can add computers or network shares or whatever, but you can certainly do it here in the configuration tab. And the configuration tab is the only place you can add connectors, and you can see the various connectors that are available at this time. So you'd come in here, you'd enter your OneDrive information. Here's the OneDrive information we have, and then you go ahead and run your investigation. All right, let's go through the process now of setting up a quick small investigation. So let's go ahead and select a case, and we're going to do our acquisition case. If you wanted to select a new case, create a new case, you can of course do that, and it'll pop you up an option to just create a new case. But of course we've got one already. We'll call this demo. It doesn't really matter what you call it for what it's worth. We're going to do the Quincy agent. Let's go on to selecting targets. Here is a place again you could define various targets that you might want to investigate. Network shares, IP ranges, computers. Again, if you wanted to actually set up a connector, you'd have to do that here. We've set a few up already, so you can see this is a OneDrive one. These are both Exchange, and then here's a Google Drive. But to keep things simple, we're going to just be collecting from computers. So you can see we both support network ranges as well as individual computers. Here's a neat feature that comes in really handy. If you put in a large range like this and then select on it, you can then come into this widget here, which is targets, or this accordion capability, whatever we want to call it. And you can go out and check the state of machines. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. And now you can see it's in audit mode, and it operated almost immediately to say, hey, there's at least one machine that's on and connected. The rest of these machines are in an unknown state, and it's going to continue polling till it figures out what state these different machines are in, whether they are red, meaning there is no machine there. There you go. Yellow, meaning there is a machine there, but there is no active agent there. And green, meaning there is a machine there and there is an active agent. So now if we want to go ahead and see the different machines that we have that are in this green state, we can just click on that and it will show you the machines that you have if you want to go ahead and add, one or all of these machines. I've already added those right here, and we're just going to search against this one. So I'm going to pull the range out. I just wanted to show you that capability. The reason I'm pulling the range out is there's really no reason to spend time searching these 185 machines and 66 machines that aren't even on the network. So, okay, so that's that. So let's go back to our job wizard now and click on job options. You can see, again, only disk is available. Very quickly, and I would say within a matter of weeks, you're going to have an explosion of things that are available. And I'll even show you how you can already see that explosion starting to happen. But we need to click on disk. And then here's, again, one of those other key differences between Quincy and the other products. You could click on preview and run, if you will, an enterprise-like investigations where you preview the drive and you explore the disk and you poke around. But you could also run these sort of more e-discovery-like investigations if you click here on search. Now, in between these is index, which again is unique to Quincy, unique to the C# agent, and something is worth exploring here just for a second. So if I click on any one of these, let me click on preview, you can see you've got live investigation option here. No, I changed my mind. I want to do an index. You can see that pops up. No, I want to do an index and a search. You see that pops up in different options within search. But let's explore indexing just right now for a second here. Let's go into the indexing option. You can see we only have our one machine. And we can build the criteria by which we want to index this machine. Do we want to enable the index? Yes. How frequently would we like to refresh our index? What are the times of day during which we will allow the index to run? Maybe you only want it to run at night. What's the maximum size of this index? What are we indexing? How are we indexing? How are we identifying the different files? So if we're indexing by file type, we would click here and then we would select the file extensions we want to index. If we're indexing all files, we can do that, and then it wipes out all those options. Let's load an option I have here. You can see basically what I said is I want to refresh the index once a day. I want to index anytime during during the day. So this is a 24-hour clock. So the maximum I want this index to grow is, I think this is what, 40 gig or something like that. Anyway, really big. There's no way it would ever grow that size, given I am only in fact indexing text files, and we can see that here. Let's just contains txt filter. You can see only the text file has been selected. And let's go ahead and check the index. That's another thing we can do here. We can go ahead and click this button, and it will give us a status of what has been sent to this agent as an indexing option. And okay, so you can see that we've sent it a file indexing option, and these are the different pieces of information we have we selected in this sort of template. And then I told you we would very quickly see a huge explosion of data types, and you can see already the agent is supporting them. We just haven't enabled the proper UI to put them into the product yet. So, but they're there. They're working, and I would expect the agent to begin, the product to begin offering them as options within the next, again, several weeks, maybe month, but certainly within the fourth quarter. All right. If we wanted to send an indexing job, we could go click here. We could click run. Either way, if we click, either way, it will send it and execute the job. But since an indexing job is not exciting to watch, let's do a search. We can run a live search, or we can run an indexed search. An index search is basically an instantaneous Google search. It runs literally instantaneously, effectively. So if you have bothered to go out and build an index on the various machines, you can query them like in real time, Google-like, and constantly be refining your search. It's a really powerful way to collect data, to find out what you have out there. And for what it's worth, it's no slower than running a live search. The task of running a live search basically boils down to you read a file, you create an index for it, you search it. Then you discard the index and close the file. Then you open a new file, you create an index of it, you query the index, you discard the index, and you close the file. All we're doing when we do an index search is when we build the index, is we're just not closing that discarding that index. We're keeping it. We can keep it on the local drive, or we can bring it back, either way. We have options of report or collect and process, and we can have a bunch of remediate options, which is delete files that are found in the search. So let's do a live search, because again, most of people are familiar with our crawl-based capabilities, and index stuff is really cool, but again, it's not quite as exciting because it just literally happens instantaneously. So let's come out here and let's search on this target machine. I know the right keyword is a data, and we're going to keep things fast. We're going to constrain it by path. And again, this is where it would be really good to tie in the preview capability with the searching capability, because you could go poke around, find out the areas you want to search in the various drives and come here and do it. Or perhaps you have a gold build or a generic way you want users to keep their information in their user drive or whatever, and then you can just specify that however it works for you. It's also worth noting that you can utilize all of the DT search specialized searching capabilities. So if you want to search for dates, they have capabilities for that. Email, credit cards, numeric patterns, regular expressions, and simple text are all things you can search for, and you can and or them and create quite complicated and complex searching algorithms. So let's just go ahead and run this just to see what it looks like, and hopefully we've done everything correct, but it will tell us if we've made any mistakes. Okay, search started, so no mistakes. Okay, so that's great. So now we're going to hop to our existing jobs to check the status. And you can see we've got 3 existing jobs already. We can, if you don't see your job here, simply click refresh. And it will go get the job. Sometimes the job is in the middle of being submitted, hasn't reached sort of the job status table yet, and so you can get it by just clicking there. Anyway, this is the job we just submitted, so let's go ahead and click on it, and it shows us the information about that job. And if we want to see what computers we ran against, we can click here, and there's the computer, and we can go ahead and click on it, and it will give us information about the computer as well as the hits that were found on that computer. And if we want to know what we searched on, we can come here and we can see the search term here is here, and these are all the different options we selected as part of the search. These are just the default options for what it's worth. So anyway, let's come back here and look at some of this data for just a quick second. Let's just give ourselves a little bit more real estate here. We're going to explore this in a little bit, but what we've got here is, excuse me, that's I think all set in size. So yeah, so anyway, the archive path. This is the path where the acquired data, if you chose to acquire data, would be. We just did report, so in fact this is where this zip only contains a simple file about the data. And then this is some generic information about where the JSON is. That's generally the report detailing what you searched, and that contains most of this information. Last file I searched, or excuse me, the agent searched, And this is important if you're sort of actively running a job. It will sort of constantly be telling you, hey, I just searched this file, I just searched this file, I just searched this file, and that's a good way to make sure it's continuing to go. So anyway, that's basic information about that job, or about that computer anyway. And let's come over here now and look at what we've got. What is returned is the context around the search. So you can see this is a certain number of words to the left and to the right of the search. We've constantly got that add a data line here. Let's see if we can find it in this one. There's a data right there. Anyway, they should all have a data in them. These are the file types. This is the path it was located in, and here's some metadata about it. So anyway, and this is also worth knowing. This is the number of hits that occurred in that file. If that ends up being important information for you to sort of see, hey, this file is more reactive, it has more credit card numbers in it, or whatever. Ultimately, you can generate a report simply by clicking on this. That's easy peasy. You can also acquire all this data. You can acquire all the data and process it. So if I clicked acquire, it would bring back all this data. It would put it into just put it into this location in the zip. If I hit acquire and process, it would bring it all back and process it into the case. So that's what I'm going to end on. I'm going to go ahead and click that and show you what happens. But since we're going to have a processing step in between when I click and when we get resolution, I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video. So let me kick it off. There we go. I kicked it off. And now I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. Okay, it completed. One thing I wanted to show you guys was the first time I clicked it, it actually ended up doing nothing. I spent a little bit of time trying to figure out why, and it was just because I simply hadn't selected anything. So I went ahead and selected all these different files, and I clicked it again, but I saved you all that agony. If you wanted to see the job's running and you want to confirm it was done, you could, of course, at any time open the job widget, which I, of course, have already done. And you click Get, and then you can see all these different add evidence jobs have completed. And that's what's going on here. We're adding evidence. You see a bunch of email sender jobs failed in between. That's because I don't have my email up and running, but I do have a message configured to be sent at both the beginning and the ending of every processing job, which is why you get all this junk here. But if you haven't configured your system in the same way, you won't be burdened by all these messages. So now let's go in and check and make sure that all this data is actually in the case and that we're happy. And we're in the acquisition case, as I recall. Go ahead and click that. And where is our grid? Okay, we've got the grid. Let's open that up. Okay, and here's our data. And if we wanted to go back and compare that with the data we'd seen in the collection widget, there would be a perfect match. I've sort of run a little bit longer than I intended, so I'm not going to do that step. Nonetheless, if you're interested, go ahead and conduct that test on your own. But that's the acquisition widget. It's very complex. Again, we've just scratched the surface here, so if you're really interested, go look for the other videos, and if you can get your hands on it, play around with it and see how it differs from our existing solutions. You can learn a lot, sort of both about the strength of the solution and where it's going by just simply playing with it for 10-15 minutes. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I hope this was helpful.